I have kicked around 10 years with the entrepreneurial lecture series. Don is extremely successful in his own right. He is like a lot of entrepreneurs. He's willing to give back. He's been very successful in his contributions towards Operation Smile, which is something that's worthwhile. But the thing he's most proud of in this life, and the greatest victory, would be his wife and 7 children. He and Peggy have 7 children. And Don, you tell your story so much better than I do. Why don't you come and do it?
Okay, I always like to clear the air a little bit. Who knows me? Oh, shoot. Someone does? How do you know me? Oh, that won't qualify. Good. I just need to know how much I can embellish and how much I have to stay to the facts. Entrepreneurship. It's exciting. A lot of people don't even, that I talk to, they talk about entrepreneurship, and when I really ask them what it is, they haven't really even checked the dictionary. Entrepreneurship. What is it? What is it?
It's to work as hard as possible to not have to work.
Okay, to work as hard as possible to not have to work. That reminds me of something else. Entrepreneurs, don't you want to be an entrepreneur because you want to be your own boss? No, I guess not. Just a few of us. You know what, really, is an entrepreneur his own boss? Who's the boss of an entrepreneur? A successful one? Customer. That's exactly right. You know what? A customer often makes an entrepreneur work 24/7. And you know what? I think there's a lot of folks out there that they are just anxious to try to get successful so they don't have to work anymore. And you know what? I've been reading some books lately, and there's a lot of good books up here, but gosh, you know what books I'm starting to read? This is old fogey stuff, but How to Retire Happy, Wild, and Free. And guess what it says? Keep working. It says the biggest and the fastest way to depression is watch TV when you retire. If you want to stay happy, I'm happy. I want to stay happy. They say you better keep doing what you're doing. It's kind of like working out. A few years back, when I had been married and had a couple of kids, I went back to Los Altos, California, where I'm from. I walked into church, and everybody came up to me, and I guess, you watch for this word, I'll use it quite a bit, but they come up to me and they go, "Wow." And I go, "What?" And they go, "You have gained a lot of weight." Now, I weigh about 153, 154. At that time, I'd been gone 10 years, I weighed 173. So I'd gained 20 pounds. And what really got me the most, my wife couldn't believe how rude people were, but, you know, LDS, charitable church, you know, hey, they love me, they're just trying to judge me and help me along. But what hurt the most was across the street was a sweet older couple, non-LDS, and I went over to them, and I go, "How you doing?" And she went, "Wow, have you gained weight?" You know what? Rather than just be mad and be judgmental, I went back and I just went to work on working out. Now, what they tell me in these books are, if you're working, luckily I get to work out and do fun things. I mountain bike every morning, and that's fun. So I try to make work fun. That's something we'll talk about in here, aligning passions and talents, but making the work fun. And really, the worst thing I could do, isn't it, when I retire? Oh, good. Now I don't have to work out anymore. It's ludicrous, isn't it? It's crazy. Sure, if you're working at something that you're not happy with, then I hope you can someday perhaps retire and work at something you're happy with. That's one of the keys. There's a book that's titled, I didn't bring it, I should have brought it. I just know my son gave it to me. It's called Flow. And it said, "Dad, I think you're so happy and you enjoy life so much, but part of it is you've aligned your passion and your talent." Okay, well, let me back up a little bit. You're going to judge me a little bit here on content. And I'm not the most, I'm kind of a classic entrepreneur, if you will. That type you've heard about that really had a little trouble getting through school and kind of has a little attention deficit issue. Yeah, that's kind of me. But anyways, to help me with the attention deficit or a little bit of disorganization, write quickly, because I'm not really scholastic. Ooh, that's important. President Hinckley says it's important. Matter of fact, if I'm going to invest with you guys, I want you to have a really good education, as well as really good experience. So if I say anything to demean education, I'm just joking. But given that, I've sized up some things that I think when you hear my story of entrepreneurship, failures and successes, then you'll tie this information to that story. And it might help you as you hear about these concepts or principles. You'll remember the story I tell you about my entrepreneurial journey. And that might help reinforce the concept. You're going to have entrepreneurs come in here. It's not a science to me like physics or like some other science that has pretty defined truths. You're going to meet different types of personalities. You're going to meet some that are very scholastic, very much different than I am, and maybe very advanced degrees. I was lucky to get through by BYU after about 10 years ago in night school. I got it mostly to get a degree, and the degree isn't in the most disciplined college. It was kind of my own university studies. But anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. Okay, these are the concepts. If you'd write them down, the first concept, if you want to be successful, and you know what, these things apply not only to entrepreneurship, but if you just want to be a successful business person, or what I'll call an intrapreneur. They can be very successful, an intrapreneur as well as an entrepreneur. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. First one I have is obedience. Alma 50:23 talks about happiness. Obedience, Alma 50:23. Second one I have is faith. I tie that to optimism and to being positive. Okay, third one I have is building a team. There's not too many entrepreneurs that really can get up. The Entrepreneur of the Year award, which we've been nominated for, that's really kind of interesting. I don't know too many islands out there that build a business by themselves. I had a partner, and then I had incredible people. And so it's really about building a team. When you have people come to invest in your business, they're going to want to know who your team is and what kind of education and experience they've had. Next, you'll hear me talk a lot about wow. Wild products, wild ideas, wild overweight. I don't know. Got my attention. Fifth, success and failure are overrated. Okay, I believe success and failure are overrated. We'll talk about that. Aligning passions and talents. I've already talked a little bit about that. I think we're up to 7, aren't we? Okay. I couldn't even do this part properly in the last segment. Sales, sales, sales. Number 8, focus on angles, not inventions. 9, repent quickly, learn from mistakes. Did the people of New Orleans learn from the last mistake? I think so. The news commentator said, yeah, I'm wondering now that this one wasn't so bad, and they learned if they'll really go back to memory now of, oh, things weren't so bad. Why did they get out of town? Anyway, learn from mistakes. 10, the Book of Mormon. If there's a message here, to me, and it doesn't necessarily mean financial, but if there's a message here over and over and over again, it's obedience will bring prosperity and success, and arrogance will bring failure and depression and unhappiness. Over and over. So if you are blessed, so to speak, whatever way, then remember where those blessings came from, or you'll have the opportunity of learning some difficult lessons again. Now, there'll be a few more along the way that we'll talk about. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. That's what most people come for. I've been telling this for a few years, but I think it's a pretty good entrepreneurial story. Kind of bring you up to when I was at BYU some 30-some years ago. I had just completed a mission to Alaska, British Columbia. Boy, you'll learn a lot of my obedience or faithfulness on that mission is a direct cause of my success versus my failures that I've had successfully in business. got off my mission, and I had a dear friend. He was also my first cousin, Norm Watkins from Arizona. I was from California. Norm and I were close. He was 2 years younger. Norm had a scholarship. I just got off my mission. He was coming back as a sophomore, like many of you. Norm had just finished his freshman year at BYU, was a star baseball player as a freshman, and they called him Stormin' Norman. Norm and I had fathers that both worked for IBM. Norm's dad and my dad were brothers, same gene pool. Norm has full head of hair. Norm's about 6'4", and big guy. And well, you see me. I did have a little bit of hair then. But what you see is what you get. And so anyway, but we were close. We were good buds. And I got off my mission, not to mention, you know, he had a nice tan. You know, Arizona, I was, you know, lily white. So anyway, we come together at BYU, and he wants to spend 2 weeks with me as I start school so we can spend some time together. I say this story because this is the best deal I ever made, this deal coming up I'm going to share with you. I want to keep that perspective. And it has to do with, oh, I didn't put this in the top 10. I'll have a few of these I'll add. It has to do with strategy. We're being obedient. We go to church that first Sunday. You know, I don't know for you guys if that'd be last Sunday or the one coming up. We are over there in the Iring Center, and there was an amphitheater, and we sat on the first row. And of course I was there, number one, to pay attention to the meeting, feel the Spirit, and I had an ulterior motive. My ulterior motive was, and by the way, some of you guys would like to open up your eyeballs, you'd see what I'm after. There was, like there are here, there was a lot of beautiful young ladies, but there was one particular beautiful, won't point to anyone, blonde, that was about 5 rows back that I went, come on, wow. I went, wow, whew, that's great. So anyway, I go back to focusing on being obedient, focused, okay? Because I know the Lord's going to take care of me, because I'm a little shorter, a little balder than other people, but I know the Lord will bless me. So anyway, the meeting's over. So I stand up with Norm, you know, Norm, and we're talking, and he's not focused. He's focused on the Spirit because he's heading right out on that mission. Me, I'm checking out this blonde coming down. She's just flowing down those stairs. She comes down to this level, and I hurry and grab a seat. Now, why did I grab a seat?
You were scared.
Scared of what? What was I scared of? Failure, but why? Why? Look at me. Why would I be afraid of anything? Why would I be scared of this beautiful, tall, flowing blonde? I wasn't scared. I was charitable. I didn't want this beautiful young lady to make the biggest mistake of her life by making a prejudgment of me and how much happiness and joy I could bring to her in her life. So, just how I am, just kind and charitable. So, anyway, she goes out. After she goes out, I grab Jim Downs, my roommate who had been there during the summer. I said, Jim, who was that? He goes, oh, that's Peggy Tuttle. He goes, I'm going over to their apartment in 15 minutes for lunch. Marilyn Metcalf's my girlfriend. I'm going over there. I go, perfect. Great. He's over there a couple hours. He comes back in. I can't wait till he walk in the door. I go, Jim. He goes, yeah. I go, how was lunch? He goes, perfect. It was great. I go, what'd she say about me? He goes, nothing. But she had a list a mile long about your cousin. That's terrible. That's terrible, girls. A list a mile long about my cousin. Oh, I can't believe it. Anyway, I'm not going to dwell on this too long, but I went ahead to make some very big mistakes. But I recovered because I'm positive. I'm not realistic. I have faith and hope. I believe in miracles. After our first date, she went in and told Susan Alstrom from Idaho Falls. Susan, of course, said, how'd it go? She said, he is really weird. He is really strange. And Susan said, I'll bet you marry him. Well, that first date was a disaster. And then the second date was somewhat better. As a matter of fact, on the second date, true story, I'm a bit of a strategist. And we had a pretty good time this time. Whew, thank goodness she had a repeat. But we had a pretty good time this time. But I said, you're a dental assistant, so you're working full time. I go, I know we would never get married. I know that. I know what you're thinking about me. I know we'd never get married. But do you mind, just if 1 in a million we did, if I could live off of, if we could live off of your income, if we were students? She says, go ahead, go ahead. Well, that beautiful young lady is my sweetheart of almost 25 years, and we have 7 beautiful kids. And I don't think she's regretted too many days. There's been a few, and I'll tell you a couple, she didn't even act like she regretted those. But we've had a beautiful time together. Again, what I do, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs this way, we don't really see problems. We see problems as opportunities. And you know what? What I like is you're not needing to be the smartest. A lot of times entrepreneurs aren't necessarily the highest in IQ. I'm surely not. I have a brother that's 6 years older than me that graduated from BYU, passed the CPA exam the first time. Doesn't even have to study, and he just gets A's, and he's just very bright, and his memory's great. Sister did great. Do you know a true story? When I was in 8th grade, my dad has his PhD in educational psychology. He also worked for 30 years with IBM in sales. Dad was a wonderful dad, but you know what? He would not let up on me. Whenever I come home with my average grades, he goes, son, this is unacceptable in our family. You can do much better than this. You need to apply yourself. You need to work. And boy, every time I brought grades home, it was not pretty. It was ugly. And there was bad feelings and everything. And so one day in 8th grade, Centerville Junior High, just before we moved to Los Alamos, California, I was sitting there and a lady came to the door of my junior high school and said, would you come with me? So I went down to, I go, what did I do? I went down to the principal's office. She took me into the room by herself. I hadn't seen her before. And she goes, hey, I just want to have a little fun here. I'm doing some little testing on some different things and some blocks and different things. Well, we spent about a half an hour with her, 45 minutes. And I go, whoa, what was all that about? I went home that night, and I think it was close to that night, if not a day or two later, if Dad was out of town. But shortly thereafter, Dad quit being angry. He quit being upset. He just looked really sad because I had flunked the IQ test. So there was no, it was great, but it was kind of sad because he's going, this kid isn't very smart. But you know what? That older brother, he came back to work for me a while later because it's really not, no offense, you guys are all probably pretty bright. Either you're really hard workers to get here, because I could never gotten accepted with my grades, or you're gifted, or you're a really hard worker. And that's great. That's wonderful. I like to hire people like you. But you know what? Entrepreneurs, I'm going to tell you their secrets. Because I usually, and I'm telling them now because I'm getting older and I'm going, might as well tell you, to give you an advantage. But entrepreneurs oftentimes, and again, don't stereotype. There isn't a perfect science. There's many people who come in here and say different things than me. There isn't a perfect science. But with me, at least, I take some disorders, if you will, mental disorders, obsessiveness. I'll obsess on an issue or a strategy. I'll focus, and I'll stay after it. So not ADD in the sense I can't focus, but if I want to accomplish something. Let me give you an example. Lovely wife I married, and I was going to school while she was working, and then I got a part-time job. I went up to the board where they offered jobs, and one said work at the I'm sure it didn't announce it this way, but garbage truck at BYU. I go, hey, that sounds fun. I like being out in the air. I like moving around. That sounds great. I go get that job. I got that job, and I'd drive around the back of the truck and go into these classes and get the garbage and put it in there. After 2 weeks, we went down to Peggy's grandma's house. It wasn't a house. It was an apartment. Grandma Hoover down by the hospital. And we were visiting with her, wonderful lady, and she said, now, Dawn, what is it you do? And I said, I go to school. She goes, well, aren't you working? I go, yes, I am working. She goes, what do you work? And that's the first time it really hit me. Really hit me. Okay, great. Grandma's asking, what do I do? I'm a garbage man. Not good. So I did the story you've heard before. As I said, oh, I'm a sanitation engineer. And she goes, what? And I said, oh, I work on the garbage truck. And she, you know, I saw that look. Don't do that, guys. If you're dating a girl, don't say I work. If you work over at BYU on the garbage truck, don't say that. I didn't tell Peggy that, or well, I didn't work there when I met her. But don't tell that. So I just went back to Peggy and I go, boy, your grandma didn't like that. And she goes, oh, don't worry about it. Entrepreneurs, gosh, you got to watch out with what kind of spouse you marry, male or female. I married the perfect one. She's just easy. She loves me. She supports me. She believes in me. Failure or success. Anyway, I said to her, I go, honey, this isn't right. You need to be proud of your husband. You know what I really want to be, honey, when I grow up? And she goes, what, Dawn? I said, I want to be, you know I love medical, but I haven't done well in chemistry or in physics. But you know what? I like people. I get along with people pretty well, and I like the medical field. I want to be a hospital administrator. How would you like to be married to a hospital administrator? She goes, that'd be fine. Whatever. See, she's not really caught up in this ego thing. She's just a good person. And she goes, but I go, well, that's what I want to be. So I wanted to go down to the hospital, and I talked to a gentleman by the name of Mark Howard, who is the administrator. I said, I made an appointment with him because if you want a job at the hospital, see, I wanted a job as an orderly down there because that was respectable as I became a hospital administrator. So I went down and met with Mark Howard. That helps you a lot with the N-word, which is a good word. What? Networking. So that's how you get a job if you want to get a job. So I went down there. I made him feel good. I really was interested in what he had to say. But people that like me, like right now, really like sharing what they have to say. So I was stroking that little ego. And when we got all done, I said, okay, Mark, guess what? I'd like to get a job down here. He goes, that'd be great. We'd love to have you down here, Don. HR department's just down the hall. So I hustled down the hall, and I go, I'm sure he's got right on the phone, made a call and said, this guy's awesome. Let's get him. Now, you know, I don't think I was really arrogant, but I do believe in some of my skills. I do believe I am a hard worker. I do believe I am a low risk for some employers. So I hustled down there. I talked to the lady, and I could tell she hadn't talked to Mark yet. I guess he maybe gotten a phone call, wasn't able to get through, because she said, you want to apply for an orderly position? We have 8 positions here. We have a stack of over 100 applications from pre-med students at BYU that want to get into the medical college. And this is critical for them, helping them. And so I go, whoa, okay. And so she said, you still want to apply? I go, yeah, I'll apply. So then, again, entrepreneurs, I think, they're really good at angles, strategizing. So I leave, and again, it's great because most of you, I'm having a little fun with you, but most of you would go, no openings, honey. Nope, no openings. Got to be a pre-med student. Hey, my wife's not really interested in that. She knows, hey, do what you want to do, be happy, and I'll take care of the kids or whatever. So I come back, and I go, 3 days, I just sit and obsess and strategize how I'm going to get a job. So fun, because you guys, lots of people don't. They don't. They just go, bummer, life's terrible. Nothing ever works for me. Oh, that's great. I go home and I go, okay, got it. Walked into the hospital, and you see the pink ladies that are there. They're older folks that are volunteering their services, and you can find out what room number your family's in or delivering flowers. And I went up to them and I said, hey, I want to be a pink lady like you ladies. And they're going, oh, he's so cute. He's really nice. What are you talking about? I said, serious, I want to be a pink lady. They go, what do you mean? And I said, what could I do? And she goes, well, you could deliver flowers. I go, perfect. Deliver flowers, perfect. On the 3rd day of delivering flowers in the hospital, I went to the operating room, and Mrs. Butler was there, head of the operating room. I delivered the flowers. She said, just a minute, sir. She goes, what are you doing here? And I said, you know what? I'm a really hard worker. I'm a passionate person. I'd really like to be a hospital administrator someday because I do like business, I like people, and I love medicine. But you know what? I got to prove myself. And so I'm only going to work for free to prove myself. She goes, you're hired. So I worked there 2.5 years. And so if there's a little secret today, one of my students that I was giving this lecture a few years ago, his dad's a dentist. He called me and says, hey, you're going to get a call, it was about 2 years ago, you're going to get a call from my son-in-law. You don't know him. He attended your lecture, and he wants to be a product developer. He's calling you Monday to work for you for free. I go, perfect. We'll see if he's any good. Takes all my risk away. If he's great, great. He works there today. As a matter of fact, his wife just had a baby 2 days ago, and a second child, and he's awesome. It was 2 months, and I hired him. So, by the way, little insight there. If you're really a good person that are passionate and talented, oh, by the way, that's it. Align yourself with passion and talent, what you love to do. Whether you start your own business to be passionate about, or whether you become what you'll hear about in a minute, an entrepreneur to start with, working in an organization with some of the entrepreneurial skills, it'll help you tremendously in your success in being valued to the company. Well, while I was going to school, still having a little trouble focusing in school, and hospital administration was my goal. And I go, boy, now I got to go to master's, get a master's somewhere in hospital administration. Back to having a little trouble with some of my grades again, I think, a little bit. And so I go, wow, I got to make some money. I'm going to go up and sell real estate. So I went up on the hills of Provo here, Quail Valley, and I started selling real estate while going to school, while working at the hospital. And gee, I did my homework for a couple of weeks, and here comes somebody, became Robert Driggs, vice president of BYU eventually, by selling a condo and made $3,300. Now, I was used to making $2.30 an hour. I'm going, this is for me. This is money. Now I can retire before you know it, and I don't have to work. See, right now, probably 10 years ago, I could retire and not have to work. I work because I love it. I'm fascinated with it. It's exciting. And it also allows me then to have the privilege of being on the National Board of Directors for Operation Smile. Allows me to be a city councilman or a mayor for my own city. It allows you those kinds of opportunities. But boy, if you're passionate, I'm passionate about business. I love what Larry Miller said, bless his heart. He was giggling down the road, and his wife says, well, what are you giggling about now, Larry? And he goes, I love business. I love business. And business is about solving those customer needs, and the more you do that by solving pleasure or pain, that's number 12 or 13 or something that I didn't add. The amount of solving pleasure and pain is how an entrepreneur is able to perform and cultivate his business. Well, I started with real estate, and before you know it, you know what? I don't to this day probably know how to drive a nail in the wall very good, but it wasn't long before I had a gentleman by the name of Carl Spurrell come up from California, Lake Arrowhead, and come up and say, Don, you're selling me these lots, you're selling me lots. I want you to build spec homes for me, and then we'll sell them in the market. I go, well, I don't even know how to hit a hammer. Do you want to learn how to build homes? I go, sure. So within a short period of time, he taught me how to hire a superintendent that's terrific on building homes. I was good at listening. Great salespeople are tremendous listeners because customers are boss. And so when people come to town to buy some real estate, I spend a lot of realtors just go out and start showing them everything. Well, I showed you everything. If you buy anything, buy it from me. Well, that's ridiculous. I was really good at listening of what they wanted and what they could afford. Then I'd leave a couple of days, and then I'd come back with the 3 best deals on the market, and oftentimes they'd buy it. Well, the same with speculation homes. This fellow helped to say, these are the type of homes. You got to put money into the bathrooms. You got to put money into the kitchens. Listen to the women. Da 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 da. And so before you know it, I was building spec homes for him with our construction company, and then I started building them for myself. And that's where my brother Jack, CPA controller from the Bay Area, said, can I come back and be a partner with you? I said, sure. So we started to build up this business. It was going great. My dad, I ended up building a home. I knew I'd be about 28, 29. Knew I'd be a millionaire by the time I was 30. And built a beautiful home out in Alpine at age 28 that's bigger than my current home in Alpine. Gosh, had a nice big Rhinell cabin cruiser in the back. We'd go to PAL all the time. And we had a nice little Mercedes. Life was great. I didn't have any curtains or furniture because I leveraged every dime I had in real estate. You know what? This was a cycle about 3 real estate cycles ago. So some of you that just caught this real estate cycle, count on it again, over and over. Well, I'll tell you about my real estate cycle. Because my dad came to me, he said, son, I'm real proud of you. You're a good husband, you're a good father, you're a good Deacon's Quorum advisor, and all these kind of things. But son, one thing you could work on a little bit is your debt. You have how much debt on this home? I said, I have 3 mortgages, but let me tell you why, Dad. By the way, I owe you, Dad, $30,000 on the third at 5% interest. And he goes, that's what I'm getting at. He goes, but I think you're not listening to the brethren on obedience on debt. And I go, Dad, there'd have to be a depression like back in your 40s when you were young. And he goes, well, I'm just mentioning it to you. I'm proud of you. You're a good boy, but if you don't want to listen, listen. I go, Dad, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to take every dime I've got, mortgage everything I've got, and invest it into a development in Bountiful called Sunset Hollow. It's right up by the golf course. It's still there. There's a big cement entryway. I took every dime I had and some other people, and we put 50% down on the land. But that entryway cost a fortune. And we started that development, and we got it going, and gosh, you know what? I was doing the right things. I had some extra time. I worked at 28 as a veil worker at the temple on the way to Jordan on the way up there. I was doing the right things. Knew God would take care of me because I've been obedient, paying my tithing, paying my fast offering. So I go up there. All of a sudden, the oil embargo hit in the late 70s. Interest rates went to 22%. Everything stopped. It's interesting, the phenomena we're having now. They've controlled and kept the interest rates down, and it's still dead. So don't think you can figure it all out. But then everything stopped. We kept it alive for 1.5 years and then lost everything. I lost everything. I was lucky to sell my home, pay off my parents with their interest. I have a lot of pride. And sell everything. Luckily, I only owed $20,000. Didn't have no $1 million. I had $20,000 worth debt. I wasn't going to file bankruptcy for that. People were very generous and nice and worked with me until I later paid them off. Through that adversity, this unbelievable wife, I go to her and say, looks like you did marry a loser. And she goes, real funny, stinking thinking, you've never done that, let's not start now, this wasn't any of your fault. That's not true. You need to learn from your mistakes. Most of it wasn't my fault, but I still did leverage too much. I was too worried about the end dollar because I told my dad if I could sell that development, just one more deal. Now I'll have $1.5 million, $2 million. I'll pay off the home. I'll pay everything off, give money to charity, and da-da-da-da-da-da. You know what? Balance. You got to have some balance. Well, I came back. We moved into a little tiny rental, sold a Mercedes, had a little tiny Subaru, and I had a partner, a friend who had been with AT&T at the time, Gary Deaton, very successful with AT&T. He came to me, he says, Don, you're a successful guy. I know you'll be successful again. I'm rising with AT&T, and that means I'm going to end up in New Jersey shortly. And no offense to those from New Jersey, he was just from Utah and didn't want to move there. And so he said, could we start our own business, do something? To make a long story short, we kind of had another adversity. We had someone that we really weren't going to start this business, but someone who I was trying to make some short-term money through either selling real estate or a few business transactions. And this fellow in my opinion, took total advantage of us. Was dishonest, lived in Gary's ward. That was adversity. Again, you know what? It's great. That adversity, that guy taking advantage of me, rather than going home saying, oh, everybody out, nothing ever works for me. Went back and we said, Gary, how hard is it to make dust covers? And he goes, well, it doesn't look very hard. This guy's doing it. Doesn't look that hard. I go, we've never made dust covers. We're not sewing people. But where could that fabric be? We go to a fabric shop. Boy, just terribly inventive. We go in there, we see rolls of fabric, Intex Plastics, California. We drove to California, walked in, talked to the salesman. What a generous, nice fellow. He comes out and he goes, what do you guys want to do? We want to build a dust cover company and make dust covers for computers. This was 1983. Now we'll teach you to watch for emerging markets. We didn't know that. We just happened to luck in. He said, okay, who's going to sew the covers for you? We go, I don't know. He goes, okay, I got a Korean friend down the street. He'll probably sew them for you. So we went back. We got a few models made. We took them back. Another principle, back to working for someone for free. We built the dust covers. He hadn't left his job, I don't believe at this time. We packaged them up. We went into computer stores and we said, here, we're going to give you these dust covers for free. pretend you bought them for $2.50. Please, Mark, put them up for $5. You can take all the money yourselves. Why would we do such a thing? Yeah, take away the risk and see if it worked. That's all we're interested in. We're interested in seeing if the idea worked. They sold great. We went back and they go, yeah, we're ready to buy now from you. That was the start of our business. I went to my wife and said, I don't know how you sell to computer stores other than the ones we do here. That's all I can think of you can do. And so, honey, guess what? The weather's been miserable in winter times around here. There was a lot more fog than it seems like there is today, this day and age. Honey, what if we get out of this lousy little rental, we buy a brand new big motorhome, we take our little Subaru behind it, hook it on, and we go out throughout the western United States. You can teach the 4 kids, we now have 7, but at the time 4. You can teach the kids school, and then go play in the nice warm Arizona or San Clemente Beach. She goes, fabulous. She's a heck of a wife. And I'm a pretty good salesman. Anyway, we took off, loaded those kids up. Gary stayed here, left his job, got the product made, and acted like receivables, payables, you know, pretended he was everybody. And that's okay. I mean, that's, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. And I went out and I just hooked up behind a church, a stake center in Phoenix, and I would just unhook that Subaru. She'd teach them. The kids had their big wheels. And I went out selling door to door. I didn't know anything. I was too dumb to know about reps that you could hire for free because they'll work straight on commission. I didn't know there was trade shows I could go to where everybody would come by your booth. You know, I just out selling door to door. We're out there selling door to door, and Gary calls me and he says, hey, when next time you're out on the, tomorrow when you're out at the dealer place, at the Apple dealer, look and see if there isn't a product that they're calling a mouse pad. And of course you remember them, they're a little bigger than this. He goes, Don, he goes, you know, now again, angles. When I say angles, not inventions, most business successes are people that have come up with just a little different angle. The inventors, they're still in their garage inventing. It's usually just an angle and an adaptation. And so Gary says, you know what? I think we can make this stuff. We have good customers now that like our products you've sold to, covers, dust covers. Can't we make them and add to our line by selling them mouse mats? I go, what do you think it is? He goes, it's scuba gear. That's all it is. I'll call up and I'll order rolls of scuba gear. So he calls up, orders in the scuba gear. We'd had a friend of his that was an accountant, Bruce Larson. And Bruce had used the other product, which was from Mousetrax. I think Mousetrax out of San Francisco was the first company in the world to ever come out with mouse mats. I think we were second. They came out, theirs was pretty thick. We took ours over after getting rolls of samples in to him, had him test it. And he goes, yeah, I like yours better. It's not as thick, da-da-da-da-da. So we started selling those mats out to those dealers. And about 3 weeks later, Bruce Larson calls and he goes, I just threw your mouse mat in the garbage. Why? He goes, you know what, it worked great for a while, but after time it isn't working as well as the other one. Boy, we were so smart. Our research and development was so weak. We found out that their surface was non-directional. We found out that, I know this is probably a little technical for you guys, but this mouse, when it starts to get dust in it, it doesn't slide as well. So as soon as if you have a particular nap to the fabric, then it's not friction. So, having integrity, we called up all of our customers and said, you know what, we were a little out of the chute early, and we made a mistake. Would you send them all back? We could hardly afford to have them come back. Honesty is always the best policy, though, for long term. No question about it. You know, there aren't many businesses that started 25 years ago that are really in business today. Now, maybe that's because they're better and sold their business. But I get lots of offers to sell my business. I'm not interested. I said I love what I do. I'm you know, it's thrilling what I do. Money's great, and we can do wonderful things with it. But I have enough that you know, I better not spend too much more on myself, or I'll go to hell for that. Even here at BYU, that's a real word, so you can go to hell if you're not a good person. You have to be a really bad person. Telestials, that's where it looks pretty safe. Forgot what I was going to say. Okay, so we started coming up with mouse mats. We showed integrity. You know what? I think we have honestly sold over the last 20-some years 70 million mouse mats. 70 million. We thought it'd only last in 85 for about 5 years. And then we thought optical or different things would take over. we sell 25,000 mouse mats a month at Walmart. You know what? We've come up with over 1,000 different angles. This one is the ones I thought, oh, nobody will come up with another new idea. Well, someone came up the other day with a puzzle mouse mat. So we can put logos on it and give something to say, hey, it's a mouse mat. Your kids will enjoy putting it back together. They're buying it. It's ridiculous. You know? Now, let me tell you quickly about an entrepreneur, moving right along. This is some of you will be an entrepreneur, and that means really you start your own business. Technically, you start your own business. That's great. Some of you might be satisfied with being an entrepreneur. And let me tell you about Chris real quick. Chris is somebody I ran into. He put himself through Westminster College. His IQ, different than mine, is about 170. He pretty photographic memory. He was the only one I know of ever to graduate from Westminster College with a perfect 4.0 in economics. I watched him grow and progress. He worked at a tractor store and became part owner. He finally came to me when he was about 27, 28, said, would you invest with me? And I said, yes, I will, because he had experience and knowledge and know-how, and he was just someone I believed in. Well, we tried to buy a couple businesses, but it didn't work out. And he says, can I come to work for you? And I said, you know what? The only opportunity at our company really is in sales, selling one of our inventions, which is a sticky pad. It's no adhesive, no magnet, and sticks on your dash, and then your cell phone sticks on it. Solves a problem, creates pleasure, and that your phone doesn't go flying off and doesn't create a mess. I said, we're in the consumer electronics field because of mouse mats, but we're not in automotive. And my salesmen are telling me we can't get in there. He goes, I'll get you in there. He took that same attitude I have on strategy. He got this in everywhere. But shortly, he was paid a certain percentage off everything he sold. He goes, Don, I need a lot more to sell here. And I go, well, you're the entrepreneur. And he goes, what does that mean? I said, well, you better help our people create what the customer wants. He says, okay, let's take the technology of gel. So we have gel in our mouse mats. He goes, let's take that technology of a sticky pad and let's create a new air freshener for cars. And so we've taken it, we call it the bug. And the bug sits on your dash, and then the gel holds the fragrance, and it works lots better than anything else out on the market. He, not everything, but it's a terrific product. He took it into Walmart. Walmart said, fantastic, wow, we'll bring it in. And you know what? It sold okay. Didn't sell great, sold okay. But what it did is it opened up the door for him to listen to the customer. The buyer at Walmart said, Chris, I like you. Your product's selling okay. And Chris says, you've got to be unsatisfied with something in the automotive air freshener industry. He goes, I sure am, and the big boys aren't listening. And if you listen, you'll have a different company on your hands. He says, I'm listening. He goes, all air fresheners come from you think there aren't opportunities out there? They're all over the place. He said, they come from the checkers, from the AutoZones, from the male-oriented industry. And they don't change it for my Walmart buyer that is 70% female. If you change your packaging and put different angles on all the different products that are already out there, so there's a lot of different products that are out there. We've just put our angle on it. He goes, but make it more feminine in your packaging, you'll do terrific. Well, today, we're number one. If you go to Walmart planogram, refresh your car, and then we also have other refresheners called the Bahama Bag, some other really cool stuff. We have a lot of really cool air fresheners, but we are number one over the last few years in SKUs at Walmart. We'll be in about 2 months number one at Target. But that's because of an entrepreneur in my company that was innovative. Now, he has ownership of stock because I want to keep him, don't I? I'm not an idiot. I want him to be real happy so he doesn't have to go out on his own. And it's interesting as an entrepreneur, as financial matters go, if you track his financial success and what he's worth today with his stock ownership, which is in single digits, he's tracking financially greater than I tracked for my own company after running it for 4 or 5 years. And so the point I leave for you is these principles that I've talked about. I don't know if I've hit them all. I hope I have in some way or another. These are some of the principles that can help you whether you start your own business or you want to have a piece of the action of something going forward. Now, financial really shouldn't be the determining factor. It's an important scorecard. It's awesome. I love it. Yes, there was a huge burden, I think, lifted from me when I work because I want to, not because I have to. And that's cool. That's really cool. But in the end, we're all still seem to be doing the same. Anyway, wish you the best. We're out of time. Good luck to you in your endeavors. Let me know if you're successful.